elephants can swing. Though nothing will keep us together. We can beat them forever and ever. Or we can be heroes just for one day.
Welcome to this new episode of Extraordinary, which is a webinar series about the challenges that modern architecture is facing in our world. And I'm very glad to say that we are here to talk and to listen to some of the biggest and most iconic architecture firms worldwide. My name is Patrick Battista, and I'm the founder and CEO of Design Wanted, which is a proud media partner of this webinar series by Medelhan. And today I'm very glad to introduce you a very, very amazing speaker from an architecture company that I love, which is big. First of all, I want to tell you that if you want to change the language you're listening and watching this webinar, you can do it by pushing the button that you should see below in the bar on the right side. So you can click on interpretation and you can change the language at any time during this webinar. Just to introduce you shortly, the guest that I'm talking with today, his name is Lorenzo Boddi, and among many actually great achievements he can represent today, he's leading the design of this new project by Big in CityLife, so in Milano, Italy.
Hi, everybody.
Ciao, Lorenzo. Welcome to this new episode of Extraordinary. It's very great honor to have you here today and to listen more about this new amazing project that of course, I know and very curious to see more.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for the introduction. Really high, good level introduction. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Roberto, I don't know if we want to share some other information about the webinar series.
Or I will just let me say hello to everybody and welcome to this third episode of Extraordinary Architectural Challenges. I'm Roberto. I'm the founder of Medelhan, and it's such an honor for me to have an important guest like Bjarke Ingels Group with Lorenzo. And I'm so happy to see so many attendees from all around the world, really hundreds and hundreds of attendees. And this underlines the fact that Big is a name that attracts a lot an audience, and also it underlines the nature of Medelhan and what is written under our name, the Global Design Network, because actually Medelhan is this new revolutionary platform created to connect the best international players of the design industry, developers, architects, designers, brands, manufacturers, and also we love to discover new talent in this industry. And with this series, Extraordinary, we like to invite some of the best architects and designers in the world and invite them to tell our community about the challenges that they face when they realize their amazing and extraordinary project. And the series is created by Marisa Corso, who is the architect liaison specialist for Medelhan. And before starting with the presentation, I only would like to thank our sponsors who made this webinar happen. And so we'd like to say thank you to our main sponsor, Mirage, and to our technical sponsor, FR, who represents all these different, some different brands for architecture. So I hope you can enjoy the webinar. Please, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you very much. Before I ask my first question to Lorenzo, of course, I mean, I'm sure that you've seen some of the projects of Big around the world. Maybe you've seen Copenhagen in Copenhagen, or the Audemars Piguet Museum in Switzerland, or even the Lego Experience Center in Billund. I mean, every time I see your projects, Lorenzo, coming from Big, I know that I will see something very special. And getting to the point, talking about your new project, CityLife. So in Milano, the city where I was born, actually. I know that the area is already home to a number of great buildings. So it's something that exploded in the last years. It's a very common place for Milanese people where they go, especially during the weekends. It's a wonderful area, as we all know. I wanted to ask you what relationship BIG wishes to develop between them, so between your new project and the other constructions.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I think the best way to answer to your question, because the building that is actually generated really from its surroundings, actually, it's really, there's an incredible relationship to the surrounding, and it's at the base of the concept itself and the concept. So I will take you through the concept generation of the building itself, and then I'll think you have your answer, because it's really how actually the building was born. This is the logo of the building, currently renamed as CityWave. Since it's an international audience, we talk about it as in Milan, but actually to just understand, Milan is there. It's in the north of Italy. It's where Patrick was born. It's an incredible city. It's really the most vibrant city in Italy. It's a city that is changing really in Italy is the place that, like, the most vibrant and most energetic one. The CityLife itself, it's you can see here in the red dots. It's in an area that actually, let's say these are circle are actually the walls of the city, but the last circle is the piano Beruto of 1851. That is actually when the city of Milan exploded in a way in terms of demographic. You can see, so it's outside from the historical city center, but it's actually inside of this historical area. So it's actually a very, very, very central site in our current development of the city itself. This is the plot itself. It used to host the city fair back in the days. And it's been through one of the biggest projects of urban regeneration in Europe. We're talking about 0.36 kilometers square. So it's a big site, and it's been all completed, but these two plots were the plots actually where we were intervening. And as you can see, there are two, and they're separated by an element where we couldn't build. That I will go through a little bit later. So it's a constraint that actually you can start seeing from here. One of the main, and that's, I think, when you start answering your question, is actually one of the main aspects, of course, when you go to CityLife, is of course the presence of this great park, but the presence of the 3 towers. One here is already completed in this picture. It was under construction at the center of the building, while the rest, it's actually more lower building, but the presence of the 3 towers that are done by 3 renowned architects. One is Adid, one is Arate Suzaki, and one is Daniel Libeskind. So we had this responsibility to actually make the missing piece in the puzzle of this great urban regeneration project. Here you can see the 2 plots. Now they are playing paddle there, but and tennis, but in the future it's been relocated, and then the work has been already starting in the site. So you can see the 2 plots are actually leading towards this central architecture grand finale in a way on the city. So they're really standing in the city itself. And talking about this part in the middle where you couldn't build, so one of the constraints. So you have the presence of these 3 majestic objects. In the same time, you have this gap in a way on the 2 sides, and this represents more than aspect. Let's say one of them is, of course, an infrastructure. So it's hosting. So it's one of the constraints. You have one of the line of the metropolitan connection, so what we call the tube in London, in Milan, the line number 5. In the same time is actually because then we're going to revert that. We'll see that later. The access towards all the drop off to this transformation area, while the rest is actually, it doesn't happen. You see, it's all white while everything is blue in this diagram. The blue is actually the vehicular traffic. There's no cars here. They're all underground. There's everything pedestrian. So there's actually it was the exception. This entrance point, this axis in the middle. You can see here all the pedestrian flow. So it's a great park. It's incredible. It's one of the largest park in the city of Milan itself. It's all suspended on the circulation below. And then starting to think about in our initial research why actually we couldn't build there. It's not only about the metro. It's actually historically this axis, the central axis, actually was an important infrastructure, because back in the days. When the fair was there, actually was the infrastructure that was leading and distributing to all the pavilion. You can see here the central axis leading to all the pavilions. So an important historical axis. And nowadays it's still there in the form of a void. So if you see all the development, they miss the central part. So there's like, together with the other axis, there's a void in the central part that is now the Piazza Trettore is called. So there's a presence of the axis. This was one of the main inspiration at the beginning in our research. And then we start looking at the axis in the city of Milan, but also in urbanism in Italy. And usually next to an axis, you always have two buildings. Often they're twin buildings, like in this case. This is some of the first skyscraper in the city of Milan. This is Piazza Piemonte. It's a very old picture. Or in Piazza Larengario, obviously in Milan, where you have two twin buildings, again, divided and creating like an entrance to axis, or Porta Sempione. But of course, you have a corso, usually an axis when next to a porta. So there is a gate, an urban gate in the city of Milan. It's called corso, and in this case, it's really a gateway. Is a gateway to, is an entrance, is a gate. So this the idea of the gates, the idea of the axis, the idea of two buildings siding them. It was actually starting to come in our mind. So it really, we start to really thinking about the context. Another aspect of the context, of course, is the height difference. This is a map that represents the lower and the higher architecture of the surrounding. The red is really high. You can see the three towers, they're the only one. While the surrounding, actually, they're buildings that are quite mid to low rise. So we're talking about 5 to 10 stories high buildings. So it's really the only element that it was told is the one in the center. We took a look at actually how we could do that. And surprisingly, in the blue buildings, like in the plots that you could call RE, that is on the left, we could go maximum to around 20 stories. But in the other one, you could go as high as you want. That's maybe why when we start reading the brief was asking for a tower. And that was one of the biggest challenges, basically the biggest risk of the project itself. It was asking exactly for 1 or 2 towers, but it was a tower topology they want. But then we start thinking about, is it really the right thing to do? It's also in respect to the 3 towers in the center. We can't really beat them because we can't do something taller than them. How can we actually, we start playing with different topologies, something we often do, and then we find out that the same amount of area could actually be organized in 2 low buildings, organized on a central courtyard. That is much more similar to the surrounding itself. It's a classic Milanese, but also European typology, the courtyard building. And at the same time, we also start running some jokes, I have to say, in the office, because the station and the plaza in the center is called Tre Torri. In Italian, it means 3 towers. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're like, okay, they're asking for a 4th tower. What are we doing? We're going to change all the name of the station and stuff like that. So it's like, we start really thinking about maybe the tower is not the right thing to do. So we try several iterations following this idea, the idea of the 2 buildings, the idea of the axis. And then I'll take you step by step how we generate what you can see is like, it looks like a complex project, but it's actually very rational in its generation. We have the 2 plots, as I was saying before, with a buildable area in the central part. The program itself is a mixed-use building, but is office-driven mainly. So you have office and a series of amenities space and a few public actually function. We decided from the beginning to split this program in 2. So detach from the 1 building only, having 2 buildings, and then organize them as a courtyard. Courtyard as an office space is usually not what you think about as a classic topology, but we think is actually a great topology. You can have a depth, for example, of 12 or 19 meters in this case, that will allow natural light to come in while having a really large floor plate that will allow collaboration. So it's really a great typology for office, not only for housing. Then you unify in a gesture in plan the building with a single gesture, as you can see here. And we did the same in section. I will come to this later. So in a way, it's a building generated by constraint and by surrounding in plan. And in section is also generated by another constraints because the curve that we use is a catenary curve. So it's almost like it is shaped by gravity itself. And then by the found object with this iteration that we actually discovered was a perfect office building because it had the biggest facade facing north, while the lower facade facing south, allowing the light to come in the courtyard. And while the smaller building that probably was too small to have a proper open air courtyard, which was formed into an atrium facing north. So it was really, everything started to click together in some ways. And when it started to do that, we got really excited about the scheme itself. And in the same time, it was creating an object that has a plethora of views toward the surrounding, towards the 3 tower in the center, towards the city center, on the Duomo with the lower building. And with the biggest building, of course, you can see in a clear day, you can see all the Alps all the way to the Monte Rosa. So it's It's an incredible view from up there. And then finally, we transform what was a constraint itself in the site, that it was this unbuildable area given by the infrastructure in the middle, in a design opportunity. So we decided that it was a way to give a gift, to transform this into a gift to the city of Milan, to create a giant cover space that is actually then a monumental stair that you can see later on. And then we unified the entire facade with a series of actually very thin elements that are in tension. And these are all aspects that I will come through later on, following like more the project in some depth part. So we start really thinking about, okay, let's make something low, let's make something incredibly almost tame, like to most merge the side. But actually, when you start going and applying all the constraints, we found out that this was an incredible landmark. And I think you can actually see from this picture is a building that actually it appears different. It's very sculptural from every side, while in the same time it pays respect to the central part. You can see here is a model, and finally these are the images that we actually found out ourselves also after generating the scheme, that we were saying like, wow, it's actually screaming, even if it's a lower building than a tower. So we can actually change actually this perception. So the main idea was from the beginning to, rather than try to compete with the three towers in the beginning, in the center of the space, actually to complete the entire regeneration project of CityLife, creating a lower building, but also framing the three tower in the center, and create this gateway to the side, to the entire urban regeneration project itself. And you can see here from an aerial view how actually it really allows the people actually to walk in from Viaggio Modossola towards the central plaza itself, and actually framing and creating a new gateway to CityLife. While from changing the corner of the views, you can have almost like a sculptural object in the park that is actually a sculpture park. So it's quite spot on as an object itself. And here you can see also from street level how really this idea of a gateway, this idea, going back to what I showed you before in terms of inspiration, in terms of the twin building, these are, of course, they were symmetric in our case, they are completely different. The idea of framing and create this really a gateway in a central axis, you can see really in this picture how was it done.
Yeah, great, Lorenzo. And we are here talking about challenges, and definitely challenging the brief is one of the main, I guess. Yes. Every time architecture firms are asked to realize something which is not feasible or doesn't fit that well the local scene. So I get a point.
That, when we did the competition, we were actually aware of either we arrived last or we arrived first. There was no in between. So that was the risk in a way. It went well.
Yeah, and that's a challenge as well. So that what makes architectural firms great when they challenge, let's say, the status quo. And looking at the pictures, I see that one of the innovative aspects of the construction is actually the novel understanding of the portico structure. Yes, which is something that comes out from the pictures as well. How did this idea come about, and how did you get inspired for this part?
Yes, again, I'll take you through what was the overall thinking from first as an inspiration for us, and then also from some of the technical aspect and the big challenge, because that's possibly the biggest of the challenge of the project itself. You can see here from the opposite side. So we call it the inverted portico. You can see here this what we call the gift to the city of Milan. So this cover grand space with these two monumental sculptural stair like blending together with the park. And this element is actually it's an hanging structure, and it's suspended on 140 meters. And it came, what you can see as a vertical element that they look really thin. There actually is not a cheat, like you will say in a lot of renderings, or it's something that they will change during construction. This is actually a picture from a project that's now under construction, is in we're delivering city soon. So it's like it's actually how it's going to be. And I'll tell you why, explaining and take you through step by step. This is actually the view, and you can see the biggest span. So we're really talking about 120, I think, in the smaller part, 144 in the biggest one. Of course, the inspiration was from the portico itself. I mean, the portico is a device that in architecture, especially in Italy, is used for a series of to resolve a series of issues. Actually, in the characteristic in our and is a characteristic of our city. Is used, like for example, in the Basilica of Sant'Ambrogio as a connection in between parts of different programs. It's used in a completely historical time. For example, in the Triennale in Milan, as blurring this element that actually this device that blurs the boundaries in between inside and out. So it's neither inside neither outside. It protects you from the rain, for example, and it's a shelter, like for example in the Mondadori quarter. So I choose really three examples of how the same device has been actually used in different timing, history and time in the city of Milan. And of course, this is not a portico, but in the same time, this idea of the void as a programmed space, as an urban space for the city, it's actually found something really Milanese, because if you think about Milan, you start thinking about Galleria Vittorio Emanuele. So it's we really thought about that. Actually, there was one of the elements that actually had really the city in his heart. How is it done? How it's done? It's very interesting. As I was saying before, it's actually generated by gravity in a way, because it's actually the shape itself is generated by a catenary curve. So a catenary curve is a curve that actually is shaped by gravity itself, and it's revolved towards the central axis. You can see here in gray, it's all gray, but darker gray, the element, the geometrical element that's been subtracted by the shape itself. You can see here how the two buildings, there are two relatively conventional buildings. We're talking about two concrete buildings. They have then this spanning element in the central part, where is the non-buildable part, and above actually the metro line. And actually, this suspended part is so lightweight. So we wanted to really do something incredibly light. But it was so light that basically it was suffering from wind uplift. So usually what you will have as pillars in the traditional portico we saw before, it's something that will hold the roof up. But in our case, we need something actually that hold the roof down. So that's why we start to call this inverted portico. So it's the same typology, the inspiration, but it's been reverted in a way. You can see a section, how the spanning part in between two elements. And the way it's done, this has been done first with our engineering firm, BE, and after with Holzer Bertagnoli, is a local firm. They're very good. And it's a wooden construction, so it's also very challenging in that sense. So this is solid wood. So it's a lightweight construction made of solid wood, together with cables in the central part. So basically, it's almost like a homemade CLT. So you lay a series of solid wood element in one direction, and then after you lay in another direction, and so on until you get the thickness that is needed. And in the central part, there's a space actually that allow cables that are suspending from the two sides to take the gravity loads. At the same time, the wood enters inside of the building, really unifying the part that's outside. So the suspended element with the classic, more, let's say, more conventional of the two concrete building that are not conventional at all, but as you can see from the picture, but they're more in terms of construction. And you can see here, I'm not gonna go deep on this, but actually how these two elements actually join in the building, in between the building and the canopy.
It's a lovely idea, and even very impactful. And I definitely see as a gate of CityLife from that part, that entrance. And it's wonderful to see how ingenious it was to find this kind of solution. And we're talking about a building which is going to host also offices.
Yes.
And I guess that even the common areas are something that got you to work on them. Also because since it's not a unique brand building like the Google one that you did, I suppose that all these common areas are fundamental to generate life within the building, and also generating the possibility to connect and contaminate its inhabitants. I wanted to know how big has addressed this part in your projects, in the CityLife project?
Yes, no, that's a great point, Patrick. I have a chapter for it because actually it's the common areas are at the heart of the building, and common areas are getting more and more important in the office environment, not only, but actually in the office world, they're getting more and more important, even actually even more after what we've seen in the pandemic. So in the post-pandemic, what we can think, we predict or try to predict what it could be, actually the office space, say, of the future of the post-pandemic workplace, actually. They will have a great central law. You probably experienced this. I mean, we did this project entirely almost in lockdown. So we really, this is a project born during lockdown. And somehow the field at the beginning, everybody was happy when it went home, and of course staying close to the, to your loved ones, and then close maybe a great windows and be more free in a way, having time to do a lot of things you didn't have time. But then after a bit, especially on the younger generation, you really feel the need, especially also in a work like we do, where collaboration is really important, to be together and share moments. And this, even if it was conceived before, the project was conceived before the pandemic, somehow it's been actually a resilient typology exactly because of this. It's proving itself to be a resilient typology because of the common areas itself. As you can see in the section here, they actually start from the outside. I'll show you the portrait before. There's a great gateway, but also we call it the gift. So this great covered open space that is a common area for the public. And then entering inside, they start to become more and more private. And it's there's a plethora. We made a catalog of it. Now I'll show you actually in the section, you can understand. So almost like this void and this common area, they come in different aspects inside of the building. One is the space in between the roof and the slab itself. We go through it later. The courtyard itself, of course, as common area in the atrium in the building facing north, and they call it the Milanese courtyard in the south facing building. I'll take you one by one because they're really one of the biggest and most important aspect of the building itself. The first one I would like to show you is a terrace. Each of the building actually where they I have a model. They create two balconies, and what we try to do also in this way, the share balconies, and in this case it was to actually make a connection directly from the lobby by walking to your desk in the first 5th floor, but also to the outdoor terrace. And you can see here with this very challenging stairs, we call it the infinite stairs, that will lead you all the way up. Second one are the two courtyards. So this was one of the advantages of not doing a tower. Of course, you can make towers with a collaboration space, of course, and then, but in this case, having the possibility of making a lower building with a great shared space in the central part, it was actually a great occasion for a courtyard like a Granda in this case, or in the much smaller scale, for example, 10 Corso Como, that it was a great inspiration for us. We will see later also. And somehow my slides are, here we see, and then the courtyard actually will different. The two courtyards will differ from the outside. We have this lush nature, so they are actually very, very green. I'll show you later how this is done. So it's very, very green, but still lightweight. And also they are the heart of is where all the air of the building will actually get through it. And then you can see here, even some of the aspects, these are two elements that actually the chimneys you use for MEP, we turn it into a possibility and mark inside of the courtyard itself. Going through, that's the space I was talking about before. So the space, the residing space that is in between the canopy and the slab, we left it empty, and next to it we always place a loggia that you can see here. It's also very green. It's an outdoor space where you can have you can go out and you can exchange ideas with your colleagues. This is some of the detail how we achieve even with the lightweight construction. This is done together with our landscape department. We achieve actually this green appearance. And this is an interesting point because it's like we could have actually left the slab touch the roof but we decided actually for the places that where the height was maybe not too generous, to remove the slab itself, and they have this cascading series of office space where actually you can go to work, and even if you are, because it's a multi-tenant building, you can, or if it's a single tenant building also, you can work perfectly actually. You can see people that work on another floor, maybe in another department or a completely other office during the day, and maybe meet each other and maybe, you know, wave and then exchange ideas. And then from so on, we think that actually ideas could be generated from this. So it's not like this enclosed model of office that it was maybe more popular back in the days, but it's actually it's really an extroverted type of office space. You can see this space in this rendering here that capture this double height space and understanding better here in the section. So it's really a place where you can mingle and exchange ideas and see each other and wave to your neighbor. So and the culmination as a grand finale, let's say, of the common area. There is the last two floors are there's a rooftop restaurant that is actually has its own independent connection for his own independent lobby, and it culminates in an incredible terrace. There's a terrace that will, from where you will see the entire Milan. Again, it's been possible. Usually you have the MEP on this level, but the organization of the building itself being in a low rise, so much easier. In a way than a tower for services, for air and all the services. We could left this with free, so it was an early decision that actually made this possible. And you actually have this incredible space. You can actually see really from here. You can see Monte Rosa during a clean day. So it's we think that actually common areas is really the main one of the main aspects of the building from the public. Example of the portico all through inside the building.
Yeah, and I can't wait to visit the restaurant when it will be live. You know, we are talking about common areas, and of course, common areas, as we were looking at the slides, they can be indoor, they can be outdoor, and we know that the relation between indoor and outdoor spaces has changed in the last years. And from your point of view, how does this project interpret the research for a new balance between the two?
Yes. Well, the building, it's really organized as a building that, as I was saying, extroverted before. It's introverted because there's a court. It's funny, there's this kind of the contradiction, but it's extroverted because it's really always access to outdoor space. And it has been done mainly through the facade system that I'm going to show you at the moment. So you can see the building, it's really start from around 20 meters going up all to 100 meters. And it's all surrounded by a series of balconies. So everywhere you have a really lightweight balcony next to your desk where you're working. Next to you, there's always a balcony that you can access. In this case, these are the largest ones. Some of them are slightly smaller, around 1.2 meters. These are 2.4 meters, so very large spaces where you were mentioning before. Nowadays, of course, I was talking about common areas before as the importance of collaboration in the post-pandemic work environment, but of course, the access to natural ventilation, breathing fresh air got more and more important. But we always like to think about, if you think about you go to work in a completely sealed office like a tower, like back in the days with no access to outdoor spaces, it's, you know, you work there for 8 hours and you don't actually have a contact with the outside. It could be anything outside. So if you think about it, it's the same as taking a flight from here to New York. And if you think about taking a flight, it's not the most pleasant experience. Of course, you watch a lot of movies, but if you're working every day, it could be quite tough. And again, this is again Corso Como. So this was a reference. So this the challenge of the balconies itself, and achieving this lightness that we want. It was actually mainly because here there are two examples of Casa di Ringhiera. So it's again was a distribution system inside of popular housing back in the days in Milan. That then it became nowadays a very, very important and popular place in the city center because people recognize their value of a place where you can meet, you can share, where you can see your neighbor, like the guy playing the guitar. But the challenge of this is like we wanted to achieve a really lightweight construction. Often in Italy you go and you see this balcony that are almost impossible structurally. So you have so simple because they're outside of the thermal line. So you don't have insulation, and you don't have a lot of drainage to deal with. So they usually have two structural elements at their end, and then they span simply with a slab of marble, for example. We love that, and we say like if we want balconies, we want it like that. So that's what we try to achieve. But of course, finding a spanning element of 3 meters in natural stone was not that easy. You can see here, but the way we achieve it is actually very, very interesting, because the facade itself is made of glass and natural stone in the vertical spandrels. In the balconies itself, we use the leftover that actually during the production of natural stone you will have. I have some here, and they're not big enough, for example, for the facade. But actually, we use that to create together, combine with ultra high performance concrete, these slabs that are basically similar to the stone itself, because they're made of the same component of the stone. And actually, we managed to span 3 meters with only 65 millimeters. So we're talking a really, really thin and lightweight element. All the balconies are hanging from the top. So we talked about before the canopy, the inverted portico, where you have the columns that bring down instead of bringing up the roof. No, they keep it down. In the same way, in this case, they are in tension, like the one of the canopy, but in this case, they're actually suspending the balcony. So all the balconies are suspended by this hanging element. There are 2 blades of steel. You can see here the facade system with the 2 balconies and then, of course, talking about challenge, this is not an easy thing, because you have a building that is almost 100 meters tall, and you have a lot of deformation from it. These have to be in tension. So we had to actually intervene in some every 6 meters, like you can see, 6 stories, sorry, where you can see like in the diagram on the right, with a series of tension rods that actually will actually balance this the deformation and keep back the balconies to resist to this. In the same time, we went quite crazy on detailing, of course, because we start playing with these 2 blades of steel, and how this actually system, almost like a mechanical of parts, will actually allow us to detail different functions they have to achieve. Like I know when they will meet the roof, or where they will meet the ground, they will have 2 different functions, where they have to sustain the balconies of the handrail, or for example, in this case, here you can see the base of the courtyard for the greenage.
Yeah, it was great to see Casa di Ringhiera.
Yeah,
because if you think of the first lockdown, you can remember many Italians being on the balconies, singing and hanging out and trying to be in touch with other people. You know, the kind of common area is something really alive.
No, exactly. And then we're actually doing that while we were in lockdown. So it was really one of the main component. We saw really the importance of this part. People cheering actually from balcony to balcony.
Yeah, great to see it. And talking about interiors, you know, Big is pretty well known for its attention to materials, and I would love to know more about the choice of materials in this specific project. How did you approach it?
Yes, yes. As you said, like we really care about material. We try also always to find like something that is not really or sometimes straightforward, but it actually great and actually enrich the project itself. This the concept. I'll take you through the concept. The main concept of the interior part has been done together in collaboration with our interior director Francesca Portesina. Is actually Italian. She couldn't be here unfortunately today to explain herself, but I'll show you a little bit. Again, this idea of blurring the boundary to the inside to outside is actually something that is reflected in the interior itself, because we envision the portico, we call it, like I see the wave now, as a really permeable structure. So almost like a door, a pavilion, something really light, something that lets the outside to come in. So one of the inspiration was actually letting the atmosphere and nature coming in. So the outside will come in this form of atmosphere and nature, creating the background for the interior. So nature, of course, in Milan. It's nowadays, of course, it almost became like the capital of this typology, like inventing something like with Stefano Boeri and the Bosco Verticale. But also back in the days, you can see often from you Milanese, you say that Milan is a city with hair. I heard, because often in the balconies you grow, they end up growing a lot of vegetation. And that, so we took inspiration from it. As like, so we decided to actually let nature and outside of Milan coming in, and almost the opposite actually. It's also, if you're Milanese, you know that is often there's a lot of snow or smog. Sorry, not even smog. Actually, also smog or fog.
Fog, yeah. Everything is there.
I'll come to the smog later, because it's actually it's a point that actually we, even the city is completely changing now. It's actually part of the project itself. But actually, fog itself is also, it's something that we southern, a little bit southern, because I'm from Tuscany, people we sometimes have fun of. But it's a poetic element also. No, it's a great inspiration. It's like this is ethereal word almost that creates. So we try to combine these two elements and letting inside of the building together with a series of rich materiality that you can feel in the and experience in a lot of architecture in Milan, historical architecture, especially done in the 50s. I'm talking about, of course, the Ponti, Portalupi. There's tons of examples. Usually they're actually expressed mainly in the lobbies. So it's always about having juxtaposition of a lot of material itself, like marble together with bronze, together with wood. So there's really a richness together. So we combine almost like this idea of the background given by the atmosphere and the green that comes in together with this object itself. So this is one of the two lobby. There's the atrium one. So we have two, one to the courtyard building that is outdoor, and then one is enclosed atrium of the smaller building. So even here, this idea of the casa di ringhiera, the houses with the balconies inside for exchange of ideas and communication is also reflected here, and also by the presence of green itself. And you can see also to the lower level, you will have, for example, a proper size tree, like in this case. And this is going to the other building, the bigger building, actually, the lobby itself. You will see the courtyard, open courtyard on the back. And again, you can see really what is the difference in between the background element. You can see that the slab itself of the soffit and the floor, they're more neutral. The soffit actually was a big challenge of, especially of coordination in between us, our local architect, Milanese, Atelier Verticale, and also MEP consultant, Mane Stins, from Vicenza, so also from north of Italy. It was a great coordination required, because it's actually what you can see there on the soffit is a pure structured concrete. But of course, you still need to include some of the elements that you have in an high-rise building. So I'm talking about sprinklers, speakers, smoke detectors, but they're all channeled and organized and coordinated in a series of slits that you can see there together with the lights. So it's really a neat element. And then you will have this element, sculpture element, rich of materiality, like the desk popping out, blending and in conjunction with nature. These are some of the other interior image. Again, this idea of more like a ethereal type of material reflecting. And another aspect was like to differentiate more like a cold materiality. So we're talking about, for example, on the ground floor, we have galvanized steel. That is usually a material that you use in not really in interior, but it's more like almost like an industrial material. But we find it really that you can actually apply in interior and have almost like it's a metal version of the marble. I would like to think about that. And it's you have in this case the two opposite worlds. So the warmth of the wood on one side, that is actually what we use for hospitality spaces, and the cold of the metal on the outside. And for example, we also play with the idea of that it is a conference center on the base of the building actually could be an object that transforms itself. So you can actually pass from a more conventional type of auditorium with seats, and then the seats will disappear on the ground and on the side, and even the side will actually open up, creating this completely new type of space that actually is very flexible. We like to think that one day during the Milan Fashion Week, you should actually have a catwalk like you can see here. So we like to challenge also the functionality of the classic typology of space. And of course, in the interior, I'll touch really briefly on what is the main components of the interior, that is the office space. We talked about the facade before with the balconies you can see here and the glazing. But also what was really important for us is that, we need to keep like a compact building. We try floor to floor of 3.8 meters. but in the same time, by organizing the mechanicals all in the center part and in the bottom, we actually managed to leave the space that is close to the window with 3.2 meters clean. So we're talking about 3.2 meters clean of pure ceiling height and light coming into the building in a 3.8 building. That is was a really, really big challenge, but I think that it will be incredibly important for the workers and for the quality of work and daylight and this relationship with the outside. So we'll see from here, you'll be able to see the courtyard and the surrounding park. These are two other images of the office space.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to be connected with external environment. You know, we feel it, we need it, especially after these lockdowns where we've been forced at home. So I think that, you know, the more natural light you can get, the better view you can have. That's definitely something that people are looking for. And that's why actually I wanted to ask you something about the landscape. I know that the CityWay project will have a new green space, and we know how much we change our thoughts about public urban spaces, and there are some other examples in Milano of areas like Isola, which has completely changed in the last years. I wanted to know what is your response to this change, to this rethinking of open spaces?
Well, yeah, that's a very good point to introduce actually the landscape chapter. We were dealing with a, you know, with a new object, like a new building actually inside of a park. So it's a big transformation, urban regeneration project of CityLife. Is one of the largest park in Milan. So we already had a park on our door. So of course we decide, as you could see before from the previous slide, to let the park enter in the site itself, but also this idea of permeability of the landscape inside of the building and some of the space. So we're really blurring the boundaries in between the inside and out. So it's like it's an extension of the inside and outdoor area. So even the portico itself is a portico. It's a space. This is kind of gift, this gesture to Milan itself, and we think it's a gift actually to the city. It's a space that is it's neither in or out, you know. So it's really letting the landscape in. In the same time, as I was saying before, we had the park, a very successful actually park intervention in Milan, and we decided, of course, to continue the work that has been done previously. And together with our landscape department, that actually, funny enough, the director Julia is actually from the area, so we had the luck of this, and Carmen actually one of my team members. So we're really rooted in the together with our local GMP. So we really rooted in the city in a way. So we decided to actually play continuity, of course, with the park itself, but also to revert a little bit how the park was conceived. We felt that the park in Milan in general, actually, they're quite, in a way, we call it monumental, but it's more like something that you take a walk on and then you look at incredible green. So they're beautiful, incredible space where we say, okay, maybe we can play something different in this case. So we actually try to play something that it will actually go from formal to informal. So from monumental space to more like interaction space. We want the green to be touched, to be played with, and then to be used actually directly somehow. You can see in the image here, we actually conceive a really as you can see, that it's almost like this green space as in continuity with the interior. One of the challenge, and then I will close on the landscape, is actually that it was not only a park that we had to deal with, but it was actually an infrastructure. Because the building, all the CityLife is characterized by 2 levels. So we have an higher level, like you can see here, where all the towers have their own lobby, etc. And then the city itself is in a lower level, that 5-meter difference itself. So we actually, the green itself will also play in the role of an infrastructure connecting these 2 parts. And we try to do it in the most gentle way, in a way. And then you can see here how I actually play this role by also creating a space where you can, for example, take a yoga class in and spill out, let's say, the office on the outside. You can actually take your laptop and work outside in the park for a bit. So it's something that also connecting again for the need of outdoor space we were talking about before. I think it's really one of the key features of the project. Also, the park, it's really a mixed-use park, so it's really lively and lived all the time. But of course, talking about challenge, there's a need of creating a connection in the portico, and connecting these two levels was not easy. You can see the site where we found the site during the competition. So these are the two plots on the right and on the left, where you have the tennis field and some construction site on the other side. These are completely detached, and actually they are blocked by two ramps. So this ramp nowadays, they bring all the drop-off and the taxi towards this area where you actually get drop-off, and then you can enter in the lobby of the 3 towers. We have to completely take another risk during the competition, and we took that risk, and it paid off, because we propose actually to remove completely this ramp, and of course we were removing the drop-off, so you have to rethink the entire mobility system of the area, and unify the two buildings with a single gesture, but in the same time also unify the entire park itself. So it's not only a connection in one direction from here to here, but actually you could go in different direction towards the park. So again, from formal to informal. As you can see here, how this is achieved with different type of connection. Particularly, for example, is accessible to everybody. On the side, you have a series of zigzagging, almost like a romantic path in the green that actually is studied in a way to allow disabled people to go up with an easy path. So it's really this idea of bringing also the two-level accessible for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it goes in the direction of inclusive architecture in this case.
Yes.
And definitely welcome to a city like Milano. We were talking about pollution before. We were talking about fog and smog as well, you know. And I mean, I know how much Big cares about sustainability, and Copenhagen is one of my favorite examples in this sense. And I wanted to ask you, in what aspects of these CityLife projects can we see this attention? Where can we understand this focus on sustainability?
Yes, introducing the sustainability chapter, we touch on smog, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it's like, of course, let's say Milan is a city that when we actually looked at the chart about the quality of air, we were a bit impressed by two things. One is very negative, one is very positive. The negative one is like historically at the really a bad air quality. The good one is like the recent administrations and the city itself, they're completely changing the city. Now the city is completely changing pace. Of course, this thing takes a little bit of time, but in Milan is like completely different. Now we're talking about a city that is in the forefront of the sustainability and enhancing the quality of air. In the same time, we thought that actually by, as you can see here, it's a summary of the sustainability aspect. And one of them is actually to allow air intake from the court itself. So again, by creating this different type of topology in a way, we could actually also give a function to the court itself, not only our relationship, but also to get the air actually from the higher part that is less polluted because it doesn't have all the smog for traffic vehicles, and bring it down into the basement and get treated. But so that was an aspect. But let's say that the way the building address sustainability, it's actually done in two ways, both active and passive sustainability. From a passive point of view, the generation of the geometry itself helped massively, because you can see here that you have the biggest amount of glazing facing the north side. For office, it means that you require much less cooling. Same thing for the atrium is facing the north side. While in the same time, the low sun that you have in the winter, you could allow to get into the court, into the office space on the southern part, but it's actually the minor part of the facade. And plus you have the balcony again. Then the balcony plays not only a role of a common area, of a shared space, but actually play a role also of protecting from the sun, that it could be quite harsh sometime in Italy. So this together with a different system Also regarding, for example, cooling. So we're reusing the same canopy to collect the water, and then we reuse it for the green, but also in the same time we use groundwater to cooling down some of the machinery, so we don't have heat rejection at the roof. So it's a combination of passive, let's say, element, and from an active point of view, I would like to touch point here is a scheme like that shows you, for example, how the air actually it's intaken from the quarter itself. I would actually like to stress a little bit on the roof itself. So we decided to clad the entire roof that we're talking about, 11,300 square meter, with solar panels. They're not panels, but they're actually solar tiles. The problem that you have often on this type of projects is that, you know, in a way, you know, they do very good, obviously, for the environment. At the same time, sometimes they're actually not that great in integration in the city itself. First, they're not integrated in buildings. Often they're actually, pass me the term, they're a bit ugly, you understand? They're completely alien to the city environment. So we actually, with our also job that we're doing in California, we're actually developing together with a company called Sunstyle, a series of tiles that actually don't appear, that they're very powerful, but they're also very beautiful in the sense that actually absorb, they have a surface treatment that allow them to absorb the light so efficiently, they actually don't look like the classic more crystalline type of PV panels, but actually almost look like slate or lead. So like classic actually material that has always been used for roofs itself. We're talking about almost 1,200 megawatt hours a year of energy production. So it's a massive reduction, potential reduction actually of consumption of energy. We're talking about probably around 40% difference with the standard office building. So it's massively, this combined together with the passive solution we have, again, avoiding the light, the presence of the balconies, the courtyard itself, the vegetation itself, we actually aiming to, we actually already achieve the pre-certification on LEED Platinum, and we're running for well gold. And this is for us very important, as we were mentioning before, and it's going to be really an incredible example of how actually energy, new energy technology actually could be combined with and seamlessly actually integrated in architecture, creating a great landmark.
Yeah, I would add beautiful technology, because we are used to amazing technologies which are not often that nice to be embedded in projects. I mean, in this case, the tiles look very nice.
You can see from the picture, it's not only a roof, but it's a facade for us. It's a really,
yeah. Also
the geometry itself, you actually, you have a facade, so there's the same importance of the facade itself.
Yeah, love it. Lorenzo, I think we got to the last questions. I say last because I have my last question, and then we will pick a couple of questions from our audience. My last question is this. I mean, given the colossal dimension of this project, what are the first fundamental steps that you made in order to assure a high quality of the design process? Because there's much to do here.
Yes, well, that's a good question. A very hard question, and but I'll answer you. The first thing you need is I mean, you need to work with incredible people. I have to say that it's an easy answer, but it's the truth. I mean, I would like to name everybody that work on the project, but it would take me too long time. So, but they're incredible, both from our team and the consultant are incredible people. Of course, you get part of the ingredient of having an amazing client. The two combination, they're great. From an architecture point of view, I think I would like to, we demonstrate that with the first part where you show the conceptual generation of the project. I think it's important to have an idea that is so strong that actually could actually survive in a way all the changes and all the things that you're not in control. So it's like if an idea is strong and it's generated by a series of also thinking that is based both on your experience, but also on sometimes in the bold ideas like this one, and you actually think you follow that almost religiously. and it is capable of actually adapting of different changes. I think that's the secret of not losing track on what it could be. I think a great architecture project, and I hope you share the opinion that this could be one of them. So we're really hoping to achieve that.
I see, and thank you for your answer. I will pick a couple of questions from people following us today. The first one is by John David. He's asking, how similar and how different is this building from your other project, Magic Carpet, Middle Eastern Media Headquarters?
Ooh, that's an old one. That was actually, funny enough, I work on that project, so.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's very different. It's a completely different topology. I mean, we don't have images of that. There was in common, they have the idea of provide passive shading. In that case, it's a completely different environment. We're talking about, I think it's in the Milanese, so really, really hot temperature and hot.
Yeah.
What's that need? Same time, there was a need to create a common space also there, so we played that with a shaded village underneath. So it completely, and that was a tower block. So it's let's say that there are ingredients and there are tools that we have in our as weapon in a way, and that they change all the time, adapting to different environments. So they make it. To me, is a completely different project, but of course there are similarities to it, and that's probably something that helped us then later on generating something unique like this project. So it's you know, we always look like we show actually, you know, we try to communicate in a simple way, sometimes really complex things that requires a lot of research and of work, and sometimes it looks like what we do is like a linear process, but the process like almost like also in science is the same. It's like it's uncertain. Sometimes you go and you try to do things, and sometimes you also find that some of the tools could be actually incredibly useful in a completely different project like this one.
I see. Last very practical question coming from Daniel is asking, when are you guys planning to have this project finished?
Hi,
when can we estimate to see the building in Milan?
Well, the completion is scheduled for around mid-2025. We are on the ground. The work has started. At the moment, they started for the ground level. So, you know, like it's a site remediation and excavation that started. And then the building will be completed and occupied actually by mid-2025, hopefully a little bit before, finger crossed.
Great, so we just had to wait. And for now, I guess we ran out of our time. It was planned to finish it for our today webinar. And Lorenzo, first of all, I want to thank you very much for your time. Your presentation was amazing. And I personally always love to see the design process behind what you can experience around. Then you can even match the expectations and the ideas with the real life results. So thank you very much for being with us today. That's been an honor and pleasure. And we'll keep following Big, of course. And I think that I'm not sure whether Roberto is joining us, but I thank you by the complete team of Medelhan as well, of course. And again, it's been a pleasure to be with you and with all our audience today. I know we are hundreds of people, and we'll meet in the next episode of Extraordinary, the webinar series where you can see all the biggest challenges made by the most iconic architectural firms around. Thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you, Patrick, for being the moderator of this interesting webinar and also the media partner with Design Wanted. Let me thank again our sponsors, Mirage, and our technical sponsor, FR, Soluzioni per Architettura. And with this, I would like to see you soon to the next episode. By the way, whoever would like to see the next episodes of Extraordinary with other amazing architects, they can just register in our newsletter on medelhan.com. And nothing else that wish you a rest of amazing day and see you soon.
Thank you very
See
much.
you very soon.
Was
Ciao,
great.
Lorenzo.
Thank you. Bye
Ciao,
bye.
Thank you.
Roberto.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.